I just want to move on to another aspect of this debate, which was something that we reflected in the story as well. You know, as we're in the midst of this very polarizing campaign, clearly, you had the Economist with its piece today that was very, very stinging in its attack on Mr. Modi and why it believes he should not be Prime Minister. The question is whether we should even care what a foreign publication says, whether these perceptions in the West matter at all. We have Gardiner Harris, the South Asia correspondent of the New York Times, joining us now. We also have Adam Roberts, the South Asia Bureau Chief of the Economist, with us on this. Let me ask Adam Roberts first. There seems to be a lot of flack, particularly from Mr. Modi's supporters online today for The Economist. Many names that you're being called today. Were you surprised by the kind of angry reactions that your article has evoked?
Not terribly surprised, no. I think there's been an anxiety among some critics of the Modi camp, of the BJP camp, to say that if you're too outspoken and too precise in your criticisms of the obvious frontrunner, the man who's likely to become Prime Minister, then you come in for some stick. We do this in every big, serious country around the world. We take a judgment on how an election should be fought and who we think should win the election. So, for example, in the United States, we endorse one candidate over the other. Last time we chose Barack Obama. We thought he'd make a better president than Mitt Romney. We do the same in Britain, in France, in Australia. And the truth is we get some pushback in those countries as well.
What would you say, though, to BJP leaders today like Nirmala Sitharaman, who's a very senior leader, who said the Economist lacks objectivity and is patronizing? Others like Arun Jaitley, who tweeted that the Economist thankfully does not vote, Indians do. That is the kind of criticism that the top leadership of the BJP has leveled against you all today.
Well, we're a newspaper. We'd like to get information and arguments out there for the Indian public, our readership, both within India but also out overseas, to weigh up in the balance when they go to vote. Of course, we're not presumptuous enough to say that we are going to decide this election. In no way would we suggest that would happen. We're just giving our voice. It's a democracy. It's a chance for free speech in this country. We're just giving our point of view as well. If Mr. Jaitley thinks that we're irrelevant, if he doesn't care what The Economist thinks, that's fine. That's his choice. But it is interesting to me how vociferous, how strong the response has been. And that suggests that very, very many people do care what The Economist thinks. And perhaps if we'd come out in favour of Mr. Modi, the same people who've been attacking us today would have been celebrating The Economist and saying how wise we are. So I think we take it with a pinch of salt, the attacks or indeed the praise that we get.
I'm going to take that to the BJP, Sudhanshu Trivedi. Mr. Trivedi, does Adam Roberts have a point that if The Economist had written a story that was full of praise for Mr. Modi, the same BJP would have said that, well, look, you know, this is what The Economist says, and that the fact that there are strong, angry responses to The Economist piece today show that whether you like it or not, you care. You care about what The Economist has written.
Actually, I want to say that whatever Economist has written, as a journalist, as a commentator, they are having right to think whatever it is. But the fact may not be as it is. I would like to quote that this United States at one point of time was not willing to provide visa to Mr. Narendra Modi. But the same US is having in 2011 the US Congressional Research Service report for South Asia, in which they have praised the developmental work of Sri Narendra Modi in Gujarat, and not only they praise, they have used the word that he is uncorruptible. So in my opinion, if the entire state mechanism of United States are churning and they are going to realize the actual facts, in my opinion, the other media like Economist, which might have been carried away by some wrong information and perceptions, in the long run they will realize the factual information and they will change their concept. This is my pretension.
So what they think does matter to you? What the West thinks does matter to the BJP?
You can say as a reputed organization of a global level, of course, if they say something, it matters to a certain class. But as far as the Indian politics and the electorates are concerned, I don't think this is going to have any impact, because Indian electorate is having a clear visualization on the ground, which is reflecting from surveys to the crowd coming up in the rallies of Sri Narendra Modi and the recently concluded Vidhan Sabha elections. I don't think it is going to have any impact.
I'll take this to Gardiner Harris, that there are many here in this country who believe that India really shouldn't care. It doesn't matter what Time magazine says, who it puts on its cover, what the Economist thinks. They're free to have their opinion. Do we overreact as Indians, to what foreign publications write about us? What is your perspective?
Yes, you overreact to what we write about you. And I mean, I think that it's not unimportant what Adam writes about you. It's not unimportant, I hope, what I write about you. And that's partly true because India desperately needs foreign investments. India has an enormous challenge over the next 10 years creating the jobs that it needs for the number of people coming of age. The only way India is going to get that done is if multinational corporations come in, invest a lot of money. Multinational corporations do read The Economist. Multinational corporation executives do read The New York Times. So as far as that, it is a very important way station, I think, for India. Having said that, I don't particularly think that Adam is going to have much effect on this election coming forward. I don't think I'm going to have much effect on it coming forward. But it will have an important outcome in whether India is successful over the next 10 years economically.
That's a very important point. Shahid Siddiqui, I'll take that to you, because you and I were having a conversation about exactly this before the show began, that, well, why is there this overreaction to this? But the point that Gardiner Harris makes is a good one, that what these publications write is read by those who matter overseas and who are looking for a relationship with India.
I agree that's read by those who matter. But we shouldn't be extra sensitive. I find it both Congress and the BJP are extra sensitive to foreign praise. We take it as a badge of honor if some newspaper or magazine praises some leader here or some criticism. I mean, we should take it in our stride. Criticism comes, praise comes, a leader has to go along with that. And foreign magazines do not have an impact on the elections. Once the government is formed, I know they will be looking at the policies of Narendra Modi. Before that, of course, the criticism will come and some praise will also come. So BJP should not be extra sensitive to what Economist or New York Times is writing. They should, in fact, make an effort to see that these foreign journals or Indian media persons get a positive, image of BJP and Narendra Modi, and that positive image will come from what he says, how the BJP people behave during the elections.
But the Economist is not impressed with what he's saying. I mean, the point is the Economist is not at all impressed with what he's been saying.
Yes, if it's not impressed, then there's some shortcoming, some weakness on the part of BJP. They have not been, because Economist is not a party. They don't belong to the Congress party or to any other party, or they are not in support of the minorities or the Muslims, or they are not the agents of Imam Bukhari. They are saying it if they feel that it is correct, and they should take it positively and come out in a way that other foreign journals praise Mr. Modi for what he is doing, and for that Mr. Modi will have to change his idiom and his style and his
Abhishek Singhvi, then should the Congress be getting so excited about what a newspaper editorial may or may not write? Because that's not really going to make a difference to this election campaign. It's not going to make a difference to how people vote, and that's what really matters right now, doesn't it?
In a sense, you're absolutely right. I don't think the Congress is getting excited about it at all. Let me make 2 or 3 things clear, Nidhi. First of all, an article in a magazine, Indian or foreign, is not a badge or a certificate of honor or dishonor. Number 2, what is important is when the content and the facts in the article either affirm our view about Mr. Modi as being bad or affirm it as being good. And certainly foreign articles are and should be used for the content and the facts. Now, if you find in The Economist, I'm just giving an example, that he is dictatorial, that the human development indicators in Gujarat are bad, that this is so about this community in Gujarat, that malnutrition is so and so, well, there is absolutely no harm in saying, look, the global community after verification finds that these figures, which are also known in India, are correct. I think therefore that approach has to be there. We don't have to go gaga if there is a very, very pleasant and a praiseworthy article written about us either. But if the content and the facts there are objectively verifiable and suggest that independent research by unconnected and non-biased non-participants suggests that a particular view is correct, well, then certainly we can go to town and say, look, we told you so, and now our view is verified. And that's the approach I have to The Economist article. I also have the approach that a large part of the BJP has always been intolerant, and that comes from the fascist tendency of not being able to accept any view contrary to your own.
Gardiner Harris, do you see it that way as well? That the intolerance of criticism. I'll just coming to you, Amir Raza. That and is that particularly something you see with the BJP? Okay, Mr. Verma, I'll come to you. Give me a second. Yeah.
So, you know what Adam gets to do, because Adam writes an opinionated journalistic story. We don't quite write this at the New York Times, but you know what India sort of has to decide is, I think what Adam has sort of made the decision is that political violence is not acceptable and is disqualifying. So Modi's links to 1,000 deaths in the Gujarat riots, Modi's links to target assassinations, those are disqualifying for The Economist. The New York Times doesn't quite make those decisions for a country, and I think what Modi's defenders basically say is that, you know, riots have happened so often, the targeted assassinations happen so often in India, these are not disqualifying. And so I think for the New York Times, at least from our journalistic pages, we're willing to sort of let that be possible for India, whereas The Economist isn't. But I do think that...
Let me just explain so I can just be
clear
what
ahead.
The Economist is saying here, just rather than have it interpreted by others. The Economist line is a little bit more subtle. We definitely think that the divisiveness and the violence that comes out of the 2002 Gujarat riots is a very big problem. But we also leave open the possibility that Mr. Modi, if he confronts his past, if he talks about what his role was, could overcome that. All sorts of politicians change, all sorts of leaders mature over time, and we think it's possible that Mr. Modi could do it too. But our judgment at the moment is that he hasn't done it yet, and therefore he doesn't qualify to be the leader. We would be delighted if Mr. Modi proves us wrong, if he wins this election, or if he does indeed give an interview, perhaps on this show, and talk in detail about his past. We would then probably come to the judgment that he's a big enough man to be the leader.
Okay, but
the problem we have is that he hasn't done it yet.
I'm going to give the last word to Pawan Verma, because Pawan Verma, the point is, at the end of the day, it is a point of view. And, you know, there's a tendency, as we said right at the beginning, for both sides to get excited by that point of view. But is there a lack of, shall we say, respect for an alternate point of view in this country? You see the reactions the moment this article came out today. Yes. They've been, you know, absolutely hateful.
Nidhi, 3 quick points. Firstly, whether it's The Economist or any other publication, it is not infallible. Many articles are often biased and ill-informed. This being said, the essential point is that we in India don't need necessarily to take partisan or objective support from outside. We have to fight our own battles, discover our own truths, expose our own falsehoods, and we will do it in a democratic manner. Thirdly, the real problem is that when we get a certificate of this kind, if it's in our favor, we are the first to quote it. Yeah. If it's against us, we answer anything remotely a critique, especially now in the BJP, by an insult, close the debate and move on, devalue it completely. I think as a mature country and a civilization, we need a certain balance, a certain maturity.
Absolutely. I give the last word to Sudhanshu Trivedi. It's only fair. Sudhanshu, I have 30 seconds. Your last comments on this.
I just want to say that BJP is neither excited or nor affected by any comment. Because we know that the entire Western media was saying in 2002, he was criticizing. I remember that I was in New York, it was I think 26th or 27th of July 2002. The New York Times is having 2-page spread on Gujarat as if there was a genocide. And they were saying that Modi is going to be routed, but ultimately the result was different. With due respect, I want to say the entire national media, predominantly English media, was also saying like this, but the vernacular media was saying something different. So in my opinion, ultimately they will realize the truth, and we are not at all affected, but we just want to respond to what the allegations has been put.
Okay, all right. I have to leave it at that. It's a fascinating discussion. Maybe one day Adam Roberts and Gardiner Harris will be enlightened, as the BJP says. Thank you very much for joining us on the program tonight.